its impact on the natural world.
It is clear that the environmental crisis which is confronting the world will profoundly alter the future destiny of our planet. No one amongst us, whatever our status, strength or circumstance, can remain unaffected.
The human environment will always change. Development will continue. There will be growth. This cannot and should not be avoided. The decisive question is in which direction we will develop, by what means we will grow, which qualities we want to achieve, and what values we wish to guide our future.
I think the lasting message of the Stockholm Conference will be the realization that man has come to one of those seminal points in his history where his own activities are the principal determinants of his own future.
Now, 50 years after that Stockholm meeting, we face a triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss, as well as other planetary ills that are affecting our current and future well-being.
This triple crisis is our number one existential threat, and we need an urgent, all-out effort to turn things around.
An unhealthy planet threatens human health, prosperity, equality, and peace, as we have seen only too clearly in COVID-19. It also threatens the achievement of SDGs. In this moment of truth, we need to urgently work to transform our economies and societies. The science is clear. The solutions are known. We need whole of society action for a whole of society problem. We know it can be done. The world came together to fix the ozone layer, phase out leaded fuel, and stop endangered species from going extinct. With this in mind, the UN General Assembly has decided to convene an international meeting entitled Stockholm+50, a healthy planet for the prosperity of all, our responsibility, our opportunity. It will be held in Stockholm, Sweden, from the 2nd till the 3rd of June 2022. It will commemorate the 50 years since that 1972 watershed moment when the environment took center stage for the first time. There is only one Earth, and the stakes have never been higher. Join us.
Welcome back. Now that we've understood a bit more about why we are here, please allow me to welcome to the stage UNDP Resident Representative in Vietnam, Mrs. Caitlin Wieser, to give some opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Ms. Anne Mawe, Swedish Ambassador to Vietnam, Dr. Nguyen Dinh To, Director General of the Institute of Strategy and Policy for Natural Resources and Environment under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, distinguished representatives from government, UN organizations, development partners, business, non-governmental organizations, and media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Xin chào. It is with great pleasure that I warmly welcome you to the official launch of the Stockholm+50 National Consultation process in Vietnam. Thank you. Our great thanks to all of you for joining us here online and in person, and for taking time to be with us here this morning. At the outset, I would like to thank the Embassy of Sweden and the Institute of Policy and Strategy for Natural Resources and Environment for co-hosting and supporting this opportunity to bring the views of the Vietnamese people to the global stage on the key challenges that people and planet are facing. As UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has pointedly stated, we are sleepwalking to climate catastrophe. There is no time for delay and no room for excuses. Humanity's welfare, and indeed humanity's very future, depends on solidarity and working together as a global family to achieve common goals. On your way in this morning, I suspect some of our guests here may have noticed a certain dinosaur standing in the library in the lobby. And as we'll see in a clip towards the end of the launch this morning, Frankie the dino, as she is called, has a message, and it's one of urgency. Don't choose extinction. We indeed are on the brink of a climate catastrophe, and if we do not act now, there will be no turning back. The government of Sweden, with the support of the government of Kenya, as we've heard, will be hosting a high-level meeting entitled Stockholm+50, A Healthy Planet for the Prosperity of All, Our Responsibility and Our Opportunity, in Stockholm on 2 and 3 June 2022, which also coincides with the week of World Environment Day. The intention of the conference is to define urgent, concrete actions we as a people can take to protect our planet, to ensure a long-term foundation for a green and inclusive future. Our communities and countries rest on the triple pillars of economy, society, and the environment. If even one falls, it will threaten the stability of the rest. As such, I would like to share a few thoughts with you on this global conference in Stockholm and what it means for us here in Vietnam. UNDP has been assigned to collect views from countries around the world, including Vietnam, to inform the discussions at the June Stockholm+50 conference. The national consultations we'll be hosting in Hanoi over the next few weeks will provide important contributions to the global conference in just a few weeks' time. The consultations here in Vietnam will examine national challenges and opportunities for stepped-up climate action through the lens of 6 key topics. These are, and the first 3 I'll share with you, are high-level leadership dialogues laid out by the global conference. The first is reflecting on the urgent need for actions to achieve a healthy planet and prosperity for all. Second is achieving a green, inclusive economic rebound from the coronavirus pandemic. And third is accelerating the implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development in the context of the Decade of Action and Delivery for Sustainable Development. The last 3 consultations are focused on thematic areas of critical interest to Vietnam, which we have chosen carefully in discussion with our Monterey partners and in response to the Prime Minister's ambitious commitments made at COP26 to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. They will address the following questions. First, what nature-based solutions will be necessary to reverse the dangerous environmental trends in Vietnam? Second, what actions will ensure a green and just transition that creates sustainable opportunities to lift millions out of poverty? Third, which leveraged actions will accelerate a circular economy and address unsustainable consumption patterns as Vietnam realizes its full economic potential? The question of how to build a sustainable future is one that affects us all, but perhaps none more so than our children and youth. And here I would like to share a quote from Native American wisdom. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. They will be inheriting the consequences of our actions today, and they are our current and future world leaders. Youth, more than anyone, understand that timing is running out. For this reason, we will be running a parallel series of dedicated national dialogues with Vietnamese children and youth, producing a separate mini report to share their views with national and global leaders. The first of these will be happening immediately after the launch this morning. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate that the consultations we launched today in Vietnam and the international conference in June are important platforms linked to a broader, larger global effort for accelerating action to protect our planet as our human life depends on it. Just as the international conference will be relying on voices from countries around the world to inform its leadership dialogues, we will be looking to you to build an informed picture of Vietnam's priorities to share on the global stage. As Frankie the Dino reminds us, extinction is a choice we cannot afford to make. Thank you. Sim Kam Eun.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wiesen, for setting the stage for us. Next, it is my honor to introduce Her Excellency, Ms. Anne Maue, Swedish Ambassador to Vietnam. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium to give some remarks.
Thank you. Mrs. Caitlin Wiesen, UNDP Resident Representative, Dr. Nguyen Dinh To, Director General of Monray, distinguished guests representing Vietnamese government agencies, businesses, civil society, media outlets, and youth organizations. The future is common. We must share it together. We will create it together. Those are the words of Olof Palme, late Swedish Prime Minister and longtime friend of Vietnam, when he welcomed the world leaders to the first global meeting on human environment, the Stockholm Conference in 1972. You saw it just now in this clip. It gathered leaders from around the world, from the north, from the south, from the east and the west in 1972. You also saw Indira Gandhi from India in this clip. His words echo just as clear today as they did 50 years ago. The Stockholm Conference meant that the first steps were taken towards developing what has since evolved to become our common international environmental standards. The United Nations Environment Programme was created and set the ground for the international community to recognize the importance of a healthy environment for everyone. Now, 50 years later, it is time to take stock on what we have achieved thus far and what is needed more to go forward. Therefore, on the 2nd and 3rd of June, Sweden is proud to welcome the world leaders back to Stockholm to address the issue of environmental protection yet again. Stockholm+50 is convened by the United Nations. It's hosted by Sweden with support from the government of Kenya. The theme, A Healthy Planet for the Prosperity of All, Our Responsibility, Our Opportunity, is linked to the words of Olof Palme to find solutions that can contribute to a sustainable future. It points to the need to act now, to the fact that we all have a responsibility to redefine our relationship with nature. Stockholm+50 aims to substantially contribute to accelerating the necessary green and sustainable transition. Time is running out and urgent action is needed. Challenges are global and we must meet them with a collective response that drives action on the ground. The most central part of the meeting will be 3 so-called leadership dialogues focused on 3 themes. One, on what are the urgent needed actions to achieve a healthy planet and prosperity for all. One, on how to facilitate a sustainable and inclusive recovery from the pandemic. And one, on how to accelerate the implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development, the SDGs. The dialogues are prepared in an informal and open process in which all relevant stakeholders are invited to participate before and during the conference. Between 1972 and now, science has unfolded the scale of the triple crises we are facing. The crisis of climate change, the crisis of nature and biodiversity loss, and the crisis of pollution and waste. And science has outlined how it is hitting vulnerable communities the hardest. Vietnam is not an exception. Reoccurring floods and pollution are evidence on how climate-induced risks are affecting Vietnam. The country is said to be one of the most impacted by the effects of climate change. In addition, Vietnam is home to over 50,000 species of plants and animals and is among the 16 most biodiverse countries in the world. However, this biodiversity is being destroyed by several factors, including population growth, resource overexploitation, and the expansion of agriculture in a harmful way. Thus, Vietnam has an opportunity to be a regional and global leader in a necessary transition towards sustainability and climate neutrality. The ambitious commitments presented by Prime Minister Chin at COP26 in Glasgow, including a net zero emission target by 2050, was an important step in this regard. To move forward from COP26, Stockholm+50 will also serve as an accelerator of commitments and actions ahead of 3 milestones events this year and next year. The UN Biodiversity Conference in Kunming in China, the COP27 in Egypt, both will happen in 2022, and in 2023 we have the UN Summit on the Future that will take place. The coming years will be decisive for how we achieve the goals of Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement. The world needs to go from agreements to action, and Stockholm+50 wants to push for the implementation of commitments already undertaken. 3 key words describes what Stockholm+50 looks to achieve. First, implementation, because the meeting focuses on implementation rather than new commitments. Second, interconnectivity, so that the meeting will not only contribute to connecting interrelated issues, but also a variety of actors in society. And 3, intergenerational, for the meeting to involve young people right from the start and hopefully contribute to new ways of working to involve young people before and in multilateral meetings in the future. In this particular regard, we encourage all countries, including Vietnam, to include youth representatives in their delegations to Stockholm. The meeting will also look for new ways to address unsustainable consumption and production, which lies at the heart of the triple planetary crisis. Furthermore, it will be looking for action that will transform harmful subsidies, those backing fossil fuels, for example, into pro-poor environmental subsidies. Above all, Stockholm+50 will embody the inclusive, healthy, peaceful world we want to build, based on equity and sustainable development. Before I conclude this speech, it is impossible for me not to mention the war in Ukraine following Russia's invasion. Images coming out of Ukrainian cities such as Bucha and Mariupol are deeply disturbing. Russia's aggression against Ukraine violates international law and fundamental humanitarian principles. Sweden will consistently stand up for international law and humanitarian principles, as we have done throughout history. We will continue to call out to others to do the same in the interest of us all. Finally, I want to thank UNDP for its excellent leadership and coordination in rolling out the public consultation process here in Vietnam, leading up to the Stockholm+50 meeting in early June. We look forward to these consultations, contributing to the inclusivity that the meeting and its preparations are looking to ensure. I would also like to thank, in particular, the Institute of Strategy and Policy on Natural Resources and Environment is Bonray under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, MONRE, for agreeing to be on board and providing your well-needed input and support. Thank you to all of you from business, civil society, youth organizations and media for contributing your thoughts and ideas and being part of this important consultation in Vietnam. I encourage you all to really use this opportunity to enable Stockholm+50 outcomes, that Stockholm+50 outcomes are gets more substantial and comprehensive than they would have been without those global consultations. Every voice must be heard ahead of and during the Stockholm+50 conference. Let us share our common future and let's build it together. I look forward to discussions today. Thank you very much. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. For our final set of remarks, I am pleased to invite to the stage Dr. Nguyen Dinh To, Director General of the Institute of Policy and Strategy on Natural Resources and Environment under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. Please.
Swedish Ambassador to Vietnam, An Mo, UNDP Vietnam Resident Representative, Kathleen Weiss, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ICE Bonray and MONRE, I thank you very much for inviting me to join this national consultation meeting. 50 years ago in Stockholm, for the first time, the Convention on Human and Environment was established, and the UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, was established, as well as the 5th of June was chosen as the Environment Day. And this year we celebrate 50 years of the establishment of UNEP, 40 years of Nairobi Convention, and also 30 years of the Rio de Janeiro. For the first time, the environment was established as one pillar of sustainable development. And 20 years of Johannesburg, when the human right and healthy environment was required for the people. And 10 years ago, as the Rio +20, we also established a framework for sustainable production and consumption. This year, we also celebrate the 20-year establishment of the MONRE in Vietnam, and it's very important for Vietnam. In the COP26, the Prime Minister has made a strong commitment on the environment protection and climate change. Especially Vietnam has committed for the net zero in 2050. It's very difficult for Vietnam, especially it even go ahead Brazil, India, China, Russia, and Ukraine. Which country have a significant impact on the world environment. And we see that this consultation will be very helpful for Vietnamese people, because in the law of environment protection issued by the National Assembly of Vietnam in 2020, we have integrated a number of requirements for environment protection and climate change action. Especially, we have the requirement for all the government, local government, and ministry to integrate the circular economy into their strategy planning in order to achieve the goal of reducing the use of natural resources, including the fossil fuel, and extend the lifetime of the products, and also reducing the negative impact on the environment. The circular economy will be important tool for Vietnam to achieve the net zero by 2050. And at the moment, the UNEP and Swedish Embassy have helped us to have the circular economy hub, which will spread the knowledge and experience and best practices in circular economy to help us to achieve the goal of the net zero by 2050. Last year, at the Environmental Day, the world also established a 10-year environment regeneration and restoration. And we hope that through the national consultation in Vietnam, the UNDP and the Swedish Embassy, together with Monterey, will help the Vietnamese youth, and not just youth. We have the Green School program that helps the small children to understand about the importance of environment protection and climate action. And to achieve the requirement and action that Ms. Ann Moore have established for this year, Stockholm+50, that is the implementation, interconnectivity, and intergeneration. We think that implementation is very important. Last year at the COP26, the world leaders have committed a financial commitment to achieve the net zero by 2050. However, developing countries and enterprises and also individual people have found it difficult to have access to the fund. And in this year, we have a request international donor, UNDP and also Embassy in Vietnam, to help the Monterey to have the initiative to establish the financial mechanism to help the developing government and also enterprise and individual to access the fund so that they can know how to use the international commitment in COP26 to have action in the COP27 and also the gathering in Kunming this year. And for interconnectivity, I wish you all, the youth that attend the meeting today, and also in the future I want to spread it to the school and the children so that they can know that with the help of UNDP and other donors in Vietnam, we have the circular economy hub that will help the people to gather together to spread their knowledge and experience best practices in circular economy. We consider design is the most important thing for us to achieve circular economy and to achieve net zero in 2050. With that, we think that we can achieve all of the three goals: implementation, interconnectivity, and intergeneration. Our ministry and Vietnam focus on the equality between people to achieve the goal of not leave anyone behind. And also we focus on the balance between generations to achieve the goal of equality between generations. Development of this generation should not be sacrificed by the future generation. And for that purpose, we want to people, young and children, to understand that the balance between development and conservation. In Vietnam, we have 3/4 of the land area are forests, and most people living in the forest area, in mountainous area, are in difficulties. And we want the commitment of international leader at the COP27 and COP26 will help for the development of carbon market that will help those who protect the forest will be benefit from the action of protecting and conservation of the forest. And those who emit the pollution will have to pay for those who protect and those who conserve. And we wish you to help us, to help Vietnam to achieve that goal, and to help the young people and children to understand of their responsibility and challenges that they will cope in the future. With that purpose, I hope that this national consultation will not only increase and raise the voice of young people in Vietnam, but also help them to increase and raise their awareness, understanding about the environment protection and climate action that they will need to take in the future. And I hope that this meeting will be very successful, and I wish you all healthy and prosperity, and to support for a healthy planet and prosperity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General. This marks the end of our introductory session. So next, we will have two presenters tell us in a little more detail about the consultations in Vietnam. First, I'd like to invite Mr. Richard McClellan to the podium. He is the designer and coordinator for our upcoming national consultations, and will be telling us about the key themes we are looking into to bring from Vietnam to the world for the Stockholm+50 conference.
Thank you very much, Maren. And I want to start by just expressing my thanks as well broadly to Vietnam and to the UN for pulling together this really important initiative. My name is Rich McClellan. I'm a policy advisor who has been working on economic and environmental policies here in Vietnam since 2014. And as Maren mentioned, my role in this process will be to support and facilitate the workshops that will be happening in a couple of weeks' time, and also to extract the insights from the different inputs into a cohesive and articulated story for Vietnam's priorities in sustainable development at the Stockholm+50 event. So to that end, today I would like to share just a few more details on the Stockholm+50 process and how that's going to look going forward. If we could skip to the next slide, please. One more. Thank you. So firstly, as has been mentioned, the Stockholm+50 process is a very exciting opportunity, not only to commemorate 50 years of work on the environment at the global international level, but also to come together and reinvigorate and accelerate the process and ideas that need to be advanced at this time. To that end, the input that's required from the stakeholders here in Vietnam is to bring our view and our ideas about what the top priorities ought to be going forward. We are collecting those views and insights from a broad array of inputs over the course of the next several weeks. Firstly, the national consultations, which have been mentioned, will be a 2-day workshop happening on the 27th and the 28th of this month, which we hope you will all attend and participate vigorously in. Secondly, there is simultaneously a set of youth consultations to ensure that we get the views of the future generations built into our overall view. Third and fourth, we're conducting a series of surveys to also support and reach out to the broader public. And finally, our most public endeavor is the Spark Blue platform, where we are inviting comments from all across the country. And these inputs will then be consolidated into one single report in preparation for the Stockholm+50 event, where there will be more than, I think, 58 countries will be participating in that dialogue. Next slide, please. In terms of the consultations that will be happening, as I mentioned, these are happening over the course of the next several weeks. The main output will be a single national report, which will provide those synthesized insights along the lines of the top sustainable development priorities for Vietnam. There will also be a sub-report or a mini report that will be added, which will provide the views from our youth consultations. Next. Seems we're having technical difficulties with the slides, so I apologize. But I'll continue as I think the slides, let's go one more, 2 more now. One more. Thank you. These topics for the consultations have been mentioned by the previous speakers, but I just want to reiterate those for us. There will be 3 sets of leadership dialogues. Those are common dialogues that are happening in every one of the 58 countries that are participating in the Stockholm+50 event. And those themes are around an urgent need for a healthy planet and prosperity for all. Second, sustainable and inclusive recovery from COVID-19. And third, implementing the environmental dimension of the Sustainable Development Goals. As I mentioned, those are broad discussions that will be taking place in all of the countries and then will be brought together collectively in Stockholm. Secondly, we are also conducting a series of thematic deep dives into areas which we believe to be top priority for Vietnam. And these areas have been identified in partnership with our friends at Esponre, who have helped us to identify the most critical themes for Vietnam. There are three main themes, and each of those have a couple of sub-themes. The first theme is around nature-based solutions, where really the impetus is to preserve natural capital for future generations. We're seeing much of the natural capital in the country eroded very quickly, and we need to stop that. We need to reverse that as quickly as possible. Secondly, around a green and just transition, how do we ensure access to green energy for everyone going forward? The rate of growth in Vietnam demands accelerated increases in energy production and consumption, but also demands a transition for environmental reasons to much greener forms of energy than we currently possess in our portfolio. And then third and finally, we're looking at circular economy topics. Really, the big question here is how do we design and deploy better models of production and consumption for future generations? Vietnam is at a wonderful turning point in terms of its economic growth. And if it follows the path of other countries in its development, that has huge downside impacts on the global environment. But if it can reinvent how we develop, if we can rethink how we consume, we can lay a template out that will benefit future generations. So these are the topics that will be discussed on April 27th and 28th. Next slide, please. And the final slide just shares the overall timeline for the process of the Stockholm+50 consultations. And you'll see here it's a quite compressed timeline. We have just a few weeks to get this work done and to be ready for the events in Stockholm on June 2nd and June 3rd. So today represents the kickoff, and then in 2 weeks' time we will have our consultation workshops. In the meantime, we're running our surveys and our online platform. All of that will be brought together in the form of a report about a month from now, which will be finalized and then submitted in advance of the conference in Stockholm. In closing, I wanted to mention a conversation I had recently with a senior government official here. She told me that Vietnam sits at a really important crossroads where she sees three imperatives coming together. The first is the continued and ongoing need for equitable growth. The second, especially considering the Prime Minister's commitment at COP26, is the need to improve on our climate action. And the third, of course, is the recovery from COVID. And she sees those three as coming together in a unique and exciting time for us, where the opportunities, the challenges are huge, but that means the opportunities are fantastic for us. And as she said all that to me, I thought, well, that's not just Vietnam that sees those three imperatives, that's the whole world. And then it was very exciting to me to be invited to participate in this particular process, which of course is looking at how those three imperatives intersect. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks at the workshop.
Thank you, Richard. Our second presenter is a young climate leader from YNET who will be joining us with our work on Vietnamese youth to ensure their views on climate action are also given the space they deserve through a youth-specific mini-report. Tuan Anh, over to you.
trình mà chúng ta sẽ cùng làm việc với các bạn thanh niên ở Việt Nam, và cái tiến trình này thì sẽ diễn ra trong tuần này và tuần tiếp theo. Thì trong cái phần trình bày của mình thì sẽ có 4 phần. Đầu tiên là mình sẽ giới thiệu rất nhanh về lý do tại sao mà chúng ta lại tìm hiểu và chúng ta lại có những cái phần tham vấn liên quan đến biến đổi khí hậu và môi trường. Và thứ hai là mình sẽ chia sẻ rất nhanh về cái khảo sát thanh niên. Phần thứ ba đó là cái quá trình mà chúng ta sẽ cùng tham vấn với nhau như thế nào, và phần cuối cùng là kết quả của các phần tham vấn cũng như là cái khảo sát thanh niên của chúng ta là trong cái báo cáo sẽ là như thế nào ạ. Phần đầu tiên thì cái bối cảnh của chúng ta đó là tại sao chúng ta lại có cái phần tham vấn này với các bạn trẻ. Thứ nhất là các bạn trẻ rất là quan tâm tới các vấn đề liên quan đến biến đổi khí hậu và môi trường, và nó sẽ ảnh hưởng trực tiếp tới tương lai của chúng ta. Thứ hai đó là ở Việt Nam của chúng ta thì chắc chắn các bạn cũng đã biết tới đoàn thanh niên, đúng không ạ? Và đoàn thanh niên thì đã có rất nhiều những cái hoạt động liên quan đến ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu và bảo vệ môi trường. Hoạt động như là trồng cây này, hoặc là hỗ trợ cộng đồng. Chúng ta thấy là có một cái phong trào thanh niên khắp toàn quốc. Cái thứ ba nữa là bên cạnh những cái hoạt động của đoàn thanh niên thì chúng ta cũng có rất nhiều những cái sáng kiến, những cái chương trình và những cái dự án độc lập của các bạn trẻ từ khắp mọi miền trên tổ quốc. Và cuối cùng thì ở trong báo cáo đặc biệt của Thanh niên Việt Nam hành động vì khí hậu vào năm 2020 thì cũng có liệt kê ra một số những cái khó khăn và một số cái rào cản để các bạn thanh niên có thể tham gia vào quá trình ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu và hành động vì khí hậu nhiều hơn. Và chúng ta sẽ cùng tìm hiểu về những cái khó khăn và làm thế nào để chúng ta giải quyết những cái khó khăn này. Vậy thì chúng ta sẽ có những cái câu hỏi như thế nào để mình có thể cùng nhau trả lời ạ? Cái đầu tiên đó là chúng ta sẽ cùng nhìn một cái tương lai vào năm 2050, một thế giới chúng ta sẽ sống như thế nào. Thứ hai đó là chúng ta sẽ nhìn thấy bản thân mình sẽ đóng góp cho cái tầm nhìn đó như thế nào. Và thứ ba đó là bắt đầu cái hành trình từ năm 2020 chúng ta đã thực hiện được những gì và những cái gì mà chúng ta có thể cải thiện và chúng ta có thể làm tốt hơn trong thời gian tới ấy. Thì chương trình tham vấn của chúng ta sẽ có một số cái mục tiêu chính. Mục tiêu thứ nhất là chúng ta sẽ tổ chức 3 buổi tham vấn tại 3 miền khác nhau, và dự kiến thì chúng tôi sẽ mong muốn là có khoảng 100 bạn, ít nhất là 100 bạn thanh niên tham vấn tham dự mỗi buổi tham vấn. Và bên cạnh đó chúng tôi cũng vận hành một cái khảo sát trên mạng xã hội cũng như là các kênh thông tin, và chúng tôi mong muốn là có khoảng 500 bạn thanh niên sẽ hỗ trợ và cùng đưa ra ý kiến đóng góp với chúng tôi. Và chúng tôi rất là khuyến khích các bạn thanh niên từ các nhóm khác nhau, các bạn từ các nhóm dân tộc thiểu số, từ những cái vùng khó khăn, hoặc là ở những cái nhóm khi mà chúng ta chưa có nhiều cơ hội để chia sẻ tiếng nói của mình. Và cái khảo sát này thì đã được triển khai trên mạng xã hội, thì các bạn có thể theo dõi trang thông tin của UNDP Youth for Climate, mạng lưới thanh niên hành động vì khí hậu, và chương trình Mover sẽ tìm kiếm và góp ý kiến của mình vào trong cái bản khảo sát này. Trong bản khảo sát thì chúng tôi sẽ có 4 cái phần chính. Cái phần thứ nhất là chúng tôi mong muốn các bạn có thể chia sẻ những cái quan điểm của mình và những cái góc nhìn của mình về hành động vì khí hậu ở cả cấp độ của quốc gia cũng như là cấp độ toàn cầu. Thứ hai là bạn có thể chia sẻ về cái tầm nhìn của bạn về một cái tương lai cũng như là bức tranh lớn đó. Thứ ba là chúng tôi mong muốn bạn chia sẻ 3 cái chủ đề chính liên quan đến các giải pháp dựa vào tự nhiên, quá trình chuyển dịch năng lượng cũng như là kinh tế tuần hoàn. Và cuối cùng thì chúng tôi sẽ có một số cái câu hỏi để giúp chúng tôi thu thập những cái thông tin một cách tốt hơn, cũng như là có thể có những cái thông tin trong phần báo cáo nó được hoàn thiện nhất. Mục tiêu của báo cáo này thì chúng tôi mong muốn tìm hiểu cái góc nhìn của các bạn trẻ, cũng như là có được những cái đánh giá cả về mặt định tính cũng như định lượng về góc nhìn và những cái quan điểm của các bạn trẻ. Bên cạnh đó thì chúng tôi cái báo cáo này cũng là một cái cơ sở để giúp chúng tôi có thể định hướng và thiết kế các chương trình để tăng cường cái sự tham gia của các bạn trẻ trong các hoạt động và các giai đoạn tương lai. Như tôi đã nói trong các phần trước, chúng tôi sẽ có 3 phần tham vấn. Ngày hôm nay, ngay sau phần khai mạc hôm nay, chúng tôi sẽ có một cái phần tham vấn với các bạn thanh niên ở khu vực phía Bắc. Các bạn khu vực ở phía Nam thì chúng ta sẽ tham vấn vào ngày 16 tháng 4. Nếu bạn nào chưa kịp đăng ký thì nhớ đăng ký nhé. Và ngày 17 chúng tôi sẽ có một cái phần tham vấn với các bạn thanh niên ở miền Trung. Thì hình thức chúng ta tham vấn sẽ là hình thức online và chúng ta sẽ cùng làm việc với nhau trên nền tảng Zoom. Các bạn sẽ nhận được cái link khi mà mình đăng ký và chúng ta sẽ dùng những cái công cụ rất là thân thiện thôi, ví dụ như là Jamboard ở trên Google này, và đây sẽ là cái không gian để các bạn có thể chia sẻ và thể hiện cái quan điểm của mình một cách cởi mở nhất. Chúng ta sẽ không có ý kiến đúng sai hay là các bạn không cần phải là chuyên gia.
No wrong, no do, no don't here. You can share only your views as personal youth representative only. And maybe after that we will compile a mini report. So this will be the process for consultation with the youth in the three areas in Vietnam. And we will have after this, who are still following the live stream and who still want to participate in the consultation for the youth in the north, you can directly register from UNDP, and you can also have 10 minutes. And also you can also continue with the consultation in the end of this week on the 16th and 17th. So I look forward to your contribution and participation in the consultations this week. Please share with us your vision about our future. Thank you very much.
May have already noticed, there is indeed a dinosaur in this building. To explain a little more about why, we'd like to show you the following video clip featuring Frankie the Dino, which has been graced with the vocal talents of the Vietnamese diva My Linh.
Anh có ổn không? Có cần nghỉ một phút không? Tuyệt. Nào mọi người, xin hãy lắng nghe tôi một chút nhé. Khủng long tôi có biết đôi điều về tuyệt chủng. Để tôi kể cho mọi người nghe. Mọi người có thể nghĩ điều này khá hiển nhiên, rằng tuyệt chủng là một điều tồi tệ. Thế còn tự đưa mình đến ngưỡng tuyệt chủng thì sao? Trong 70 triệu năm qua, đây là điều nực cười nhất mà khủng long tôi từng nghe đến. Ít nhất là chúng tôi tuyệt chủng là do tiểu hành tinh đâm vào trái đất. Còn lý do để biện hộ của loài người là gì đây? Loài người đang cận kề thảm họa khí hậu. Vậy mà mỗi năm chính phủ các nước vẫn dành hàng trăm tỷ trợ cấp cho nhiên liệu hóa thạch. Hãy tưởng tượng, chúng tôi đã chi ra hàng trăm tỷ trợ cấp cho một thiên thạch khổng lồ. Đây chính là điều mà loài người đang làm. Hãy nghĩ xem quý vị có thể làm những điều ý nghĩa hơn với số tiền đó. Biết bao người trên thế giới đang sống trong đói nghèo. Quý vị có nghĩ rằng dùng tiền giúp đỡ những người nghèo sẽ tốt hơn là trả tiền để dẫn đến kết cục tuyệt chủng hay không? Tôi xin được tham gia một chút nhé. Quý vị đang có cơ hội rất lớn khi xây dựng lại nền kinh tế sau đại dịch. Và đây là cơ hội tuyệt vời cho loài người. Vậy nên khủng long tôi xin có ý kiến thế này. Xin đừng chọn tuyệt chủng. Hãy bảo vệ muôn loài trước khi quá muộn. Đã đến lúc loài người dừng biện hộ và bắt đầu hành động để tạo ra sự thay đổi. Cảm ơn vì đã lắng nghe.
Thank you so much again to My Linh for lending us your talent to bring Thank You the Dino to life for a Vietnamese audience. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of our launch ceremony. Thank you all for making time in your busy schedules to join us. I would kindly ask the attendees here to stay for a group photo once the live stream has been concluded. Guests from media are invited to stay around if they wish to conduct one-on-one interviews. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Thank you, and goodbye.